Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor Templar here, and we're going to talk about a very important subject, and that's theoretical science, theoretical physicists, theoretical theoretics, and other stupid thinking. You know, I've had about as much as I can stand from science who wants to make up how things happen and then try and contrive that what they've made up is really a fact when people don't seem to pay attention to the fact that everything is a theory. It's the theory of relativity that Einstein put forward, and then being the ultimately closed-minded buffoon that he turned out to be, kept fighting even though we knew it was wrong. So, but what was he? What his profession? A theoretical physicist. How isn't that interesting? So you make up things and that may be. Now, I think there's a certain place for that, but we must understand that this is not science, and so many other things aren't science either. This is theoretical. So, and people need to understand what that is. It's just a concept of what may or may not be true. Plain and simple. So we need to quite understand this. It is not science, and neither is so many other things that people think are science. There are certain things that are more engineering type facts. The stress on a beam, or how much a line of weight can carry, how a structure is built, etc. This has nothing to do with science. This is engineering. How plastic melts and is shot in a mold, or other things that we talk about, or even the so-called technology we have, which is pretty crappy. The stuff that breaks all the time, the computers that don't work. We go on and on with all these things. But what's worse is these people who want to condemn everybody else and what they're thinking based on their theories, which is really nothing more than an educated guess. Let's get very real. That's what it is. And that's what so many things in life are. They're an educated guess, and it depends on the education or whether it has any value. And I find most education is valueless. It's still somebody's opinion and really not anything more. So they're talking about it in a field of understanding that they particularly have. Now, where this comes in, particularly in the occult sciences and everything which is the occult sciences, which covers everything alternative or different, is the fact that we get people coming out who are nothing more than disinformation agents stating theoretical conclusions. But nobody takes a theoretical conclusion as being theoretical. Well, that's your opinion. Interesting. You know, I'll have a little glass of scotch and think about it, and then I will either like it or hate it or whatever. It's still no proof to it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, a lot of things like Einstein's theory of relativity has been proved incorrect. 100% proved it doesn't make sense. Quantum physics rules when it did even back then. And quantum physics is not new. It was debated with him back then by Max Bohr, who was championing quantum physics over Einstein's goofball. Well, we must have control here. We can't go too fast because my eyes will fly out of my head. You know, it's really a bunch of garbage. So a theory is your opinion based on your education. So what? Does it matter? Who cares? Well, it does in the bigger picture, because people talk about this, even with Einstein, and give him all this credit. Well, Einstein said this. They're theories. That's his opinion. There's nothing proven about it. But people don't look at that. People don't remember the word theory. They think that this is a scientific statement, a fact. Other people come out with that. One of those is Jacques Villée, the Frenchman, otherwise known as the government whore, who gets his funding from military sources, who comes out with stories about UFOs because nobody knocked on his door from a spaceship and say, hey, buddy, let's have some escargot and talk about the universe. So, and then, of course, he's backed up by who else but the military mouthpiece, traitor, government murderer, Colonel John B. Alexander. So, but the point is, people don't listen to these people and think they're spouting theories. When he comes and says, Jacques Vallée, that these are interdimensional beings, people from our future, etc. I mean, when you start getting into this stupid crap bozo thinking, anything is possible. If we're going to get into theories of things, then this can go on forever. Now, we've had a lot of theories in UFOs, similar to this kind of stuff. Well, they come from the Earth. Well, there could be bases inside the Earth. Certainly, there's been cases of UFOs coming out of the ocean that have been tracked by the military. Why? How do they come out of the ocean? It would be a great place for a base, would be in the ocean, wouldn't it? Especially a big ocean that has never really been watched. And maybe that's the reason why it hasn't been watched. People really don't know what's going on there. And it hasn't been explored. Certainly a great place to put things would be to put a base under the ocean somewhere. That doesn't mean they're subterranean creatures that are coming up, or putting a base in Mount Shasta or wherever. It doesn't mean that that's where they originated from. Certainly would be a place to hide again. Makes sense, wouldn't it? Now, when we start getting into theories that these are interdimensional beings, they come from our future, first of all, there's absolutely zero, double, triple, godzillion zeros way of proving this. You can't prove it. There's absolutely no way whatsoever. They're clouding the issue, and I'm a little tired of this theoretical nonsense that we get from this. You're clouding the issue again, and you're stating things that you, as a supposed educated person coming up with this conclusion, is moving people in a direction that they think that this is based on something profound, instead of basically just one of your brain farts or your paid off disinformation. It's very interesting that the criminal government researcher, Colonel Alexander, would come to the same opinion that Jacques Vallée would, or did they agree to that when they exchanged checks there? Because that's where his research money comes from, and apparently he lives off of that. So the whole idea is that this is nonsensical and we need to stop this. Theories can be of anything. Plain and simple, it could be anything. These are ant creatures that morph in the night into space beings. Oh, well, that sounds ridiculous. It does? Well, why does it sound ridiculous? Have you ever studied the capacity of ants? And maybe they're extraterrestrial creatures. I mean, it can go on infinitum. And the fact is that while one thing sounds more interesting or possible by you, it means absolutely nothing. And the fact that a pseudo-educated person is going to come out and give you their opinion has no value whatsoever. Especially unless you're well educated in the field. But the point is, we move away from what is the basic scientific understanding, if we even want to do that. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's common sense. But Occam's razor says that the simplest answer probably is the answer. So here we are, that people can't wrap their heads around that this is a gargantuan universe which is endless, with trillions of planets, and just any kind of statistical data will tell you that if you have trillions of planets, somebody survived and somebody figured out how to do things. Particularly since we have intergalactic traveling ships right now. This has been verified by the Lockheed Skunk Works and by the parapsychologist, a famous one out of UCLA, Barry, I can't remember his name right now, in his books. He was at the retirement dinner for this person, and he stated it. We have this capacity now, and we all know that, just like we have anti-gravity, which I personally witnessed military aircraft with anti-gravity, and so have thousands of others. So the point is that if there's anti-gravity, they have everything else. Invisibility, the ability to go to other planets, etc. And we have Tinker toys that we're putting up in space. And of course, to cover all this up, they need to have a huge Mars program, both private, which is basically even is much more controllable than federal. You got to remember, if it's owned by the country, a large number of people can access that information. If it's private, the door is shut permanently. You can guess why there's so many people in the space program right now, because of the fact private companies, they're all bought and paid for, all these goofballs that are involved in these projects. So it's quite interesting how they've privatized everything to actually do this. So I just told you why there's good reason to privatize things. As a private organization, you're beholden to nobody. Plain and simple. Maybe your stockholders, if it's a stock on, but if you own a stock, you can't just go onto a business and say, well, I own 10 shares of Amazon. Well, I'm here to go look at the warehouse. Good luck. You're not going to get onto the property. Those are off limits to accept certain people. So this is why things are privatized again. So this is the nonsense that's going on. So when you open things up to theoretics, anything is possible, and it's nonsensical because these people are controlled. And quite frankly, none of these people are very intelligent. And people get credibility, again, based what? Jacques Vallée has written several different books based on his research. Research what? I didn't know there was a degree in ufology, that you could be this great educated person, get this foundation, and then you go out and do your own research and get a, quote, doctorate by writing a book on it, on UFOs. No, so what he's doing, it's my research, my conclusions, what I've done, what I understand, what I know, what I've come to a conclusion of. Oh, so it's all about me and your conclusions. Based on what? I talked to some people too. What are you talking about? This isn't an established field. These are nothing but your personal opinions and conclusions you've come up with. And anyone that starts talking theoretical is nonsense. It doesn't even make sense that we're talking about dimensions and people from the future, etc., when these things are completely and totally theoretical and there's no proof whatsoever. What is there proof of? There's proof of that there's planets out there beyond the Earth. There's other galaxies. Galaxies upon galaxies are speculated. But we know there are other galaxies beyond the Milky Way. We know that there are trillions of planets. This is a fact. This is not theoretical. How much of this, how many planets, how many are habitable? Well, we don't know that. Again, that is calculated through, still, we can work out some mathematical systems that'll give us a calculation that makes sense and more down to earth, other than the fact that they're from a parallel universe. There are future people coming back, time traveling back and forth. This was all laughed at so many years ago. Now time travel is perfectly okay. They can go back in time. Isn't this all wonderful? And isn't all this proven? Or provable? What? It's not? It's theoretical? Well, so I guess we're getting back to what is proven, the fact that there are trillions of planets. There are technologies that we know of right now that are based apparently on extraterrestrial. If they're not, it just shows that we have mastered gravity. We have planes crafts that go interplanetary, if not intergalactic already. We have that capacity. This is a fact, people. This is not theoretical. So if this little goofball mental case reality called Earth, this open air insane asylum, was able to achieve that, we're the only ones in the universe that could do it? Well, statistically, based in hard, cold, provable facts, if we did it, everybody else can do it and go beyond, especially if they're billions of years ahead of us. So it's very, very important that everyone understands that, and we move past all this theoretical nonsense that doesn't make any sense whatsoever based on what really is a fantasy, the comic book reality that everybody seems to be living in. The comic book belief systems, the comic book gods, and the comic book theories from disinformation agents that want to lead you into a fanciful story that is all white sponge cake and no filling. It's empty. It's stupid. It's Jacques Villers and his sidekick, Colonel Alexander. Tell me, Colonel, what did you find? The government never lied to you, and, I would know. They told me everything. And, there's no spaceships, there's no technology. Not that. I looked, and I would know. Well, thank you, Colonel. Well, we should believe you, of course, because we all know that, the military tells us everything, and the government never lies. Ooh la la! Let's get some escargot. Oh, is my baguette here? So the whole idea is that this kind of stupidity needs to stop. There are basic conclusions here. When we're talking about extraterrestrials, we are not talking about dimensional or futuristic beings, etc. The question is in this vast universe other species that have somehow figured out the capacity to come here, physical entities and physical ships, which have been captured, have crashed, etc. We have physical proof of these as well. That's what the question is. When you get into this other kind of nonsense, it never happens. It never can be proved. This is nonsense. We can get into theories. Well, my theory on it is that it's all created by Jesus, who was an extraterrestrial, and these are all Jesus people. I mean, the absurdity of this, it goes on and on with this kind of stupid and ignorant talk. That's not the question. That question is, are there physical beings from other planets, regardless where that is, coming here and making contact, or not making, or just coming here, period? Plain and simple. The rest of this, if you can't come to an answer, is not my problem. You should label it as theoretical understanding of what's going on in this alien question, which isn't an alien. An alien, an extraterrestrial, just by the nature of that term, means not from planet Earth, but from some other planet. When we're talking about dimensional beings, then we're talking about spiritual beings, we're talking all these, it is endless when we get into this. And these are things that are totally and completely not believed in by regular science. Regular science won't even believe in PK and psychic energy. But we're supposed to believe that there are beings in other dimensions and spirits? I mean, these things are absurd when we're talking about it. The issue is plain and simple when it comes to so many things. We're not speculating with this nonsense. And it's amazing how he's taken the entire UFO question and warped it and perverted it as he was paid to do. You certainly can tell that since the government mouthpiece, the liar, wrote the introduction for his latest book. How nice. Or I should say it's the other way around. His military buddy and pal wrote a book that he probably dictated to him, and he gave the introduction to it, Villers. What is this nonsense? On top of the fact of him getting his research money from the government. Well, this is speculative nonsense. And to think that some general, so he wasn't even a general, some colonel who retired in 1988 would know what's going on is absurd. This was a colonel who was an infantry colonel in Vietnam. Oh, that turned out good. and apparently knows everything now, right? Because everything was told this infantry guy. It's absurd. The whole thing is absurd. And certainly he and his personal clearance, whatever they've told him, I doubt is all that high. And certainly he doesn't have the need to know about extraterrestrials. They've told presidents to shut the fuck up when they asked what was in Hangar 18, what was in Area 51. They were told it's none of your business. Why would it be this infantry colonel who didn't make it to general after spending 33 years in the military? And I have to wonder why, if he knew everything. Why wasn't he able to reach the rank of general before retiring after 33 years? Because he was kept out, if he's real at all. But we all know that he's spying for the government. But the point is, this theoretical nonsense should be kept in comic books and in science fiction, and way the hell away from anybody who's got a logical thought, or any person investigating this area or so many other areas seriously, because obviously they aren't. And obviously they're such bad researchers that they can't come up with anything, yet there are hundreds, if not thousands of books on UFOs talking about physical evidence and physical beings. And Jacques cannot get his head around it. Oh my. Ooh, Pepe, where are we? I don't get it.
I'm right over here. I'm a military guy, I'm gonna tell you the truth all the time, Like why we haven't won a war. But I'll tell you, aliens ain't real. Oh, by the way, we actually won Vietnam and all the other wars. You just missed it.
Thank you, Colonel. I think you missed it. And the sooner you shut up and your buddy Valet shuts up, the better we all will be.